The sound of a mother's sob can cut deeper than any blade. And that's exactly what echoed through the dusty courthouse that day when a trembling widow fell to her knees, clutching her son. "Please don't take my child away," she cried, her voice breaking under the weight of despair. Her name was Clara. She'd lost her husband in a tragic accident the year before, a hard-working man who left behind little more than debts and a small boy named Tommy. Life had been relentless. With no steady job and their small farm sold to cover bills, Clara struggled just to keep food on the table. And now, because she had missed a month's rent, the authorities were threatening to take Tommy into foster care. The townspeople watched in heavy silence. Some shook their heads in pity. Others whispered that perhaps the boy would be better off elsewhere. But Tommy, only 6 years old, clung to his mother's tattered dress, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Mama, I don't want to go," he whimpered. Standing at the back of the room was a man few dared to approach, Ethan Blackwood, the silent rancher. A tall, broad-shouldered figure with weathered hands and a face carved by years of sun and hardship. People said he'd lost his wife and child long ago in a fire, and from that day on, he rarely spoke. He lived alone, a shadow on the outskirts of town. But as Clara's cries filled the room, something in Ethan's piercing eyes softened. The widow's desperate plea, the way that little boy clung to her, it stirred an ache buried deep inside him. Memories of the fire, of his own little girl's laughter, of the emptiness that followed. The judge cleared his throat, preparing to deliver the ruling. "Mrs. Miller, while the court sympathizes with your situation, the welfare of the child must come first. Without stable housing or income, custody will be." Before he could finish, a chair scraped against the wooden floor. All eyes turned as Ethan Blackwood rose to his feet. He walked forward with steady, deliberate steps, his boots echoing in the hushed chamber. Clara's breath caught in her chest as the silent rancher stood beside her. "I'll take them," Ethan said finally, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. The room gasped. Clara looked up, startled. "What?" "I'll give them a home," Ethan continued, his gaze fixed on the judge. "The boy stays with his mother. They can live on my ranch. I'll cover their needs. You won't find a steadier place for that child than with me." The judge adjusted his glasses, completely surprised. "Mr. Blackwood, this is highly irregular." "Are you certain?" Ethan nodded once, firm and unyielding. "More certain than I've ever been." Clara's tears flowed harder. But now, they weren't only tears of sorrow. She whispered, "Why? Why would you do this for us?" Ethan looked at her, his voice heavy with unspoken pain. "Because no child should be taken from their mother. I know what it's like to lose family. I won't stand by and let it happen again." The courtroom fell silent. After a long pause, the judge declared, "Very well. The boy remains with his mother, under the guardianship and support of Mr. Blackwood." The days that followed weren't easy. Clara was grateful, of course, but wary of this stoic man who had opened his home to them. She worked tirelessly around the ranch, cooking and cleaning to repay his kindness. Tommy, though shy, quickly found joy in the wide open fields, chasing chickens and riding the old ranch horse. And Ethan, though still a man of few words, began to change. He'd watch Tommy play with a faint smile tugging at his lips, or listen quietly to Clara humming as she cooked. Slowly, the hollow silence that had consumed his life was filled with the warmth of a family once again. Of course, there were struggles. Clara's pride often clashed with Ethan's stern ways. She didn't want charity, she wanted dignity. And Ethan, unused to companionship, sometimes withdrew back into his silence. But with each challenge, they found common ground through late-night talks on the porch, through shared work in the fields, and through their mutual love for Tommy. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of gold, Clara watched Ethan teaching Tommy how to rope a calf. The boy's laughter echoed across the land, and Ethan's quiet chuckle followed. Clara's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of hope. She walked over, her heart trembling. "Ethan, I don't know how to thank you." He met her gaze, his voice low but steady. "You already have." Years passed. The ranch became more than just a place to live. It became a home, a sanctuary of love and healing. Clara found purpose managing the ranch's accounts. Tommy grew strong and bright under Ethan's guidance. And Ethan himself discovered that family wasn't something you lost forever. It was something you could rebuild, even from the ashes. On the day Tommy graduated from school, he stood tall, with his mother's hand in one and Ethan's in the other. "You saved us," he told Ethan, his voice choked with emotion. "You gave us a life." Ethan shook his head softly. "I know, son. You gave me one." And so, the silent rancher who once lived in shadows found his voice again, not through words, but through love. Clara's desperate plea hadn't just saved her child. It had saved a broken man. Their story became a quiet testament whispered through the town that compassion can turn strangers into family. And that sometimes the most powerful acts of love come from those who speak the least. Because on that day in the courthouse, when Clara cried, "Please, don't take my child away," someone listened. And that one simple act changed everything. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that inspires. See you in the next one.